My name is Adrian Carter, and if you had asked me a year ago where I'd be today, I would have told you something predictable. A cozy corner office at Lumina Tech, maybe a promotion to senior analyst, nothing too flashy, but enough to keep my head above water in this city of endless ambition. That's what I thought life was about, climbing the corporate ladder one careful step at a time, keeping your head down, and doing everything right so no one could ever accuse you of being anything less than perfect. What I didn't realize was that perfection doesn't protect you from cruelty. It doesn't shield you from betrayal, or blind arrogance masquerading as authority. And it certainly doesn't prepare you for the moment when someone who barely knows your name decides they can crush your world with 3 little words. You're done here. It started on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The kind where the sun filters through the blinds, just enough to make you feel hopeful, like maybe today will be better than yesterday. I arrived early as usual, clutching my coffee cup like it held all the answers to life's mysteries. My desk was neat, files stacked precisely, sticky notes aligned symmetrically, and my inbox already organized into folders before anyone else had even booted up their computers. I liked order, predictability, control. Those were things I understood. What I didn't understand was why Marcus Hale, our smug, self-important CFO, called me into his office without warning. He wasn't known for his warmth or fairness. He was the kind of man who thrived on intimidation, the type who wore expensive suits and flashed fake smiles while sharpening his knife behind closed doors. "Adrian," he said when I walked in, gesturing toward the chair across from him. His tone was clipped, dismissive, like he couldn't spare more than 5 seconds of his precious time for me. "Have a seat." I sat, clutching my notebook tightly against my chest. Something felt off. Usually, these meetings came with some sort of preamble, an email requesting my presence, a vague mention of quarterly reports, but not this time. This time, there was nothing but silence as Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it satisfaction? Amusement? Whatever it was, it made my stomach churn. "You've been underperforming," he finally said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Your recent project evaluations haven't met expectations. Frankly, we need people who can deliver results, not excuses." Underperforming? My hands trembled slightly, but I forced myself to stay composed. Underperforming wasn't just inaccurate, it was laughable. Just last week, I'd single-handedly saved the company thousands by identifying a critical error in our client billing system. My supervisor, Rachel, had praised me for it during our team meeting. Everyone had praised me. So what exactly was going on here? "Marcus," I began carefully, "I'm not sure I understand. Can you clarify which project you're referring to?" He smirked then, a slow, deliberate curl of his lips that sent a chill down my spine. "Let's not play dumb, Adrian. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Your lack of initiative, your inability to adapt. We simply don't have room for mediocrity at Lumina Tech." Mediocrity. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. How dare he reduce months of hard work, sleepless nights, and relentless dedication to something so petty? But before I could argue further, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table toward me. "Here's your severance package. Take the rest of the day to clear out your things. Security will escort you out after lunch." Security? Severance package? My mind raced, trying to piece together how this had happened. Had someone whispered lies about me? Sabotaged my work? Or was this simply Marcus flexing his power, proving he could destroy anyone who dared cross him, even if they hadn't actually crossed him? "I think there's been a mistake," I said firmly, though my voice wavered slightly. "If you'll just give me a chance to explain." "There's no mistake," he interrupted, standing abruptly. His towering frame loomed over me, his eyes cold and unyielding. "You're done here, Adrian. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." And just like that, my world unraveled. The hours that followed passed in a blur. Colleagues avoided eye contact as I packed up my belongings, stuffing files and personal items into a cardboard box with trembling hands. Some offered weak condolences. "Sorry to see you go. Let's grab coffee sometime." But most stayed silent, unwilling to risk associating themselves with failure. Even Rachel, who had championed my work only days earlier, disappeared into her office, leaving me to face the fallout alone. By the time security escorted me out of the building, my cheeks burned with humiliation. I felt small, insignificant, like a pawn sacrificed on a chessboard without a second thought. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, clutching my box of discarded dreams, I realized something terrifying. Marcus Hale had underestimated me. He thought he'd silence me, erase me, but he had no idea who he was dealing with. Lumina Tech had been my life for nearly a decade. I'd poured every ounce of energy into making it succeed, believing wholeheartedly that loyalty and hard work would eventually pay off. Now, standing outside its gleaming glass doors, I vowed to prove him wrong. Not just wrong, he'd regret this decision. Every single person involved in my termination would come to understand the cost of crossing Adrian Carter. But first, I needed a plan. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into research, dissecting Lumina Tech's inner workings like never before. I combed through old emails, analyzed financial reports, and pieced together patterns I'd missed while buried under deadlines. What I discovered shocked me. Corruption ran deep within the company. Marcus wasn't just arrogant, he was reckless, funneling funds into offshore accounts and manipulating budgets to line his own pockets. Worse still, he wasn't acting alone. Several high-ranking executives were complicit, including the CEO, Victoria Langston, whose polished image masked a web of deceit. Armed with evidence, I began reaching out to former colleagues, quietly gathering allies who shared my disillusionment with Lumina's toxic culture. One name kept surfacing: Daniel Harper, a brilliant software engineer who had resigned 6 months prior under mysterious circumstances. Rumor had it he'd uncovered suspicious activity within the IT department, but was forced out before he could expose it. Tracking Daniel down proved easier than expected. He worked freelance now, coding late-night projects from a tiny apartment downtown. When I knocked on his door, he answered cautiously, his dark hair tousled and glasses perched crookedly on his nose. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We were strangers united by a common enemy. "Adrian?" he asked finally, recognition dawning in his hazel eyes. "What are you doing here?" "I need your help," I said simply, holding up a flash drive containing everything I'd uncovered. "And I think you need mine." Daniel hesitated, then stepped aside, motioning for me to come in. Over the next hour, we pored over documents and discussed strategies, our voices growing animated as the pieces fell into place. By the time I left his apartment, a fragile alliance had formed, one built on mutual respect and a shared desire for justice. As days turned into weeks, Daniel and I grew closer. Late-night brainstorming sessions morphed into impromptu dinners, laughter cutting through the tension of our mission. There was something comforting about his quiet intensity, the way he listened intently and offered solutions without judgment. Slowly, imperceptibly, my focus shifted. Yes, I wanted revenge. I craved it. But somewhere along the way, Daniel became more than just a partner in crime. He became someone I trusted, someone I cared about deeply. Yet, amidst the budding romance, danger lurked. Marcus and Victoria weren't oblivious to our movements. They began tightening their grip, eliminating loose ends and silencing dissent. Whispers of surveillance circulated, and paranoia crept into every corner of our operation. Still, we pressed on, determined to bring them down. One evening, as we sat side by side in Daniel's dimly lit living room, poring over spreadsheets and legal loopholes, he turned to me suddenly, his expression serious. "What happens after this?" he asked softly. "When it's over, I mean. Do we go back to normal lives? Or does this change us forever?" I stared at him, caught off guard by the vulnerability in his voice. For all our planning, I hadn't allowed myself to consider the aftermath. Revenge consumed me, it drove me, but what lay beyond it? Could I find peace, closure, happiness? Before I could respond, his phone buzzed loudly, shattering the moment. A text from an unknown number flashed across the screen. "They know." The message hung between us like a storm cloud, heavy with implications. Our window of opportunity was closing fast. If we didn't act soon, Marcus and Victoria would bury us, and everything we'd fought for, once and for all. Taking a deep breath, I looked at Daniel, resolve hardening in my chest. "We finish this," I said firmly. "Together." And so, with hearts pounding and adrenaline coursing through our veins, we prepared for the final showdown. A battle that would test not only our courage, but also the strength of the bond we'd forged in the shadows of betrayal. The next morning, Daniel and I met at a small cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. It was our usual spot for planning sessions, far enough from prying eyes, but close enough to feel safe. The air buzzed with tension as we spread out our notes on the table, careful not to draw attention. The text from the previous night weighed heavily on both of us, but neither of us spoke about it directly. Instead, we dove straight into the plan. "We need to move faster," I said, tracing my finger along the timeline we'd sketched out on a napkin. "If they know we're on to them, they'll start covering their tracks. We have maybe a week before they erase everything." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "Agreed. But we can't rush this. One wrong move, and we're done for. They'll discredit us before we even get a chance to present the evidence." I leaned back in my chair, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He was right, of course. but patience had never been my strong suit, not when every second felt like an eternity. Still, I forced myself to take a deep breath. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting the people who had trusted us, the whistleblowers who had risked everything to help expose Luminatech's corruption. What if we split up? I suggested after a moment. You focus on securing the digital trail, the emails, the financial records, and I'll handle the human element. If we can get someone inside to corroborate our findings, it'll add credibility to our case. Daniel hesitated, his brow furrowing. Splitting up is risky. If either of us gets caught. I know, I interrupted, meeting his gaze steadily. But we don't have a choice. We're running out of time. He studied me for a long moment, then gave a reluctant nod. All right, but promise me one thing, you stay safe. No unnecessary risks. A small smile tugged at the corners of my lips despite the gravity of the situation. Same goes for you. By the end of the day, we were operating on separate fronts. Daniel retreated to his apartment, where he spent hours buried in code, encrypting files and setting up secure backups. Meanwhile, I reached out to Rachel, my former supervisor at Luminatech. She was hesitant at first, her voice trembling over the phone as she warned me to be careful. But when I mentioned specific details only someone on the inside would know, she agreed to meet me. We chose a park near the riverbank, far from the office towers where prying eyes might recognize us. Rachel arrived wearing oversized sunglasses and a scarf pulled tightly around her neck, looking more like a spy than a corporate executive. She scanned the area nervously before sitting down beside me on the bench. You shouldn't have called me, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. If anyone finds out. No one will, I assured her, keeping my voice low. Rachel, I need your help. You've seen how Marcus operates. You know what's going on, don't you? She hesitated, biting her lip. It's not just Marcus, she admitted finally. Victoria's involved too. She's been funneling money into offshore accounts for years. And now they're cleaning house. Anyone who asks too many questions ends up gone. My stomach churned at the confirmation of what I'd already suspected. That's why they fired me, I said bitterly. They thought I was getting too close. Rachel nodded grimly. And they'll do the same to anyone else who threatens them. Adrian, you need to drop this. Please. For your own sake. I shook my head, determination burning in my chest. I can't. Not anymore. But I need you to trust me. Can you get me access to the internal audit reports? Anything that shows discrepancies in the accounts. Her face paled, and for a moment, I thought she was going to refuse. Then she sighed, resignation settling over her features. I'll try. But if they find out, they won't. I promised, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed it myself. As the days passed, the stakes grew higher. Each piece of evidence we uncovered brought us closer to the truth, but also closer to danger. Late one night, as I sifted through documents Rachel had smuggled out of the office, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from an unknown number. Adrian Carter, a gruff voice asked when I answered. Yes. Who is this? This is Detective Harris with the Financial Crimes Unit. We've received an anonymous tip regarding irregularities at Luminatech. Care to explain why your name keeps coming up. My heart sank. Anonymous tip. Someone had leaked our investigation, and not necessarily to help us. My mind raced, trying to figure out who could have betrayed us. Had Rachel been pressured into turning us in? Or was it someone else entirely? I'm sorry, Detective, I said carefully, buying myself time to think. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I left Luminatech weeks ago. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. Interesting, because according to our source, you've been digging into some pretty sensitive information. If you're involved in something illegal, it's in your best interest to cooperate. I'm not involved in anything illegal, I replied firmly. But if you're looking into Luminatech, you might want to start with their CFO, Marcus Hale, and their CEO, Victoria Langston. The detective didn't respond immediately, and I braced myself for the worst. Finally, he spoke. We'll look into it. But if you're holding back evidence, or worse, tampering with it, you'll regret it. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in stunned silence. Whoever had tipped off the police hadn't done it to protect us. They wanted us exposed, vulnerable. And now, we were walking a razor-thin line between justice and jail. When I told Daniel about the call later that night, his expression darkened. This changes things, he said, pacing back and forth across the room. If law enforcement gets involved, we lose control of the narrative. They'll twist it however they want. So what do we do? I asked, panic creeping into my voice. Sit back and hope they actually investigate Marcus and Victoria instead of turning this around on us? No, he said sharply, stopping mid-stride. We accelerate. Get everything ready to release, publicly. If we can't trust the authorities, we take it to the media. I hesitated, the weight of his words sinking in. Going public meant putting ourselves in the spotlight and making ourselves targets. But it also meant ensuring the truth couldn't be buried. All right, I said finally. Let's do it. Over the next 48 hours, we worked non-stop, compiling every shred of evidence into a single, undeniable package. Emails, financial records, whistleblower testimonies. It all came together in a damning dossier that painted Marcus and Victoria as the architects of a massive fraud scheme. By the time we finished, exhaustion clung to us like a second skin, but there was no time to rest. As dawn broke on the third day, Daniel uploaded the files to a secure server accessible only by select journalists known for their integrity. Then, together, we drafted a press release detailing the allegations and sent it to major news outlets. For a brief moment, as we hit send, I allowed myself to feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we'd done enough to bring them down. But as the sun rose higher in the sky, casting golden light over the city, I realized something else. Whatever happened next, I wasn't alone. Daniel stood beside me, his hand brushing against mine in silent solidarity. In the chaos of revenge and betrayal, I'd found something unexpected, a connection deeper than anger, stronger than fear.